Hey everyone, welcome back to the Swish Woodland podcast, where today I am joined by one of the game's greats, who is of course on Swish. So exciting opportunity for you all. This legend who I thought would be sitting around that $300 mark on there is on there for just $50. And add to that the new Woodland discount, which is $15 off. And we are sitting at $35 for a personalized video message from one of the best to ever do it. Also, up to 70% of those proceeds go to Kiwi Kids charities, and it is super easy to use. I'll leave a link in the description so you can just go click on that and get a message from one of the absolute greats of the game. Also, before we start, I have a message from another lad, Tim Bateman, with a very exciting opportunity for all Woodland listeners.
Cheers, Jimmy. Are you looking for an exciting career for life after rugby? My name's Tim Bateman, and I've been a professional rugby player for the last 17 years. My plan for life after rugby was to get into the wellbeing and recovery industry, so I built O Studio, New Zealand's largest wellbeing and recovery centre. Despite the challenges of COVID, we've seen consistent growth in our business, and we've decided to expand O Studio throughout New Zealand and abroad. It's an exciting time for the wellbeing industry, and we're looking for top lads to be a part of it by opening your own O Studio. If you're interested, head to ostudio.co.nz/lad to inquire. Back to the show.
What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad. What a lad, what a lad, what a lad, what an absolute lad.
Oh, what a lad. Well, it's always good to have a genuine legend on the podcast, and to be honest, they do not get much better than today's guest. He's a proud Otago man and potentially the greatest Highlander of all time, having played 153 times for them, including captaining them to the 2015 Super Rugby title. He's also a Commonwealth Games gold medal winner with the New Zealand Sevens, and of course a Rugby World Cup winner with the All Blacks. He is an incredible player and even a better lad. It is one of the greats. It is Ben Smith. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on. That would hurt to say that 215.
Mate, it does.
Super Rugby finalist and winner, yeah.
Oh, but what a year that was for you boys. You boys were incredible that year, eh?
Yeah, we just managed to get a bit of momentum and two white battlers at the back going at it in the final, myself and the man himself.
Mate, but awesome to have you on. Obviously been a massive fan of yours as a player throughout my career, and your name's popped up heaps of times throughout all the other podcasts, so I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories from your side of the view.
Yeah, cheers, Jimmy. Yeah, hopefully I can give a couple of stories. I really enjoyed my rugby over the years, and hopefully there's a couple of yarns I can give along the way. Yeah,
but we'll start with the current. You obviously just come back from Japan. How was it over there?
Yeah, it was actually it was good. The borders are starting to open, so managed to get over there, not do the 2 weeks when I got there, or the 2 weeks when I got home. So, normally that's a month of isolation. And, I actually, this time I went over without the family, so they stayed in school back over here and, managed to play a couple of games. I only played sort of 3 games, but I really enjoyed my time over there. Obviously, the passing of Steve Cumberland was pretty sad while we were over there, and in a way lucky enough to get over and have some memories of playing golf with him and sharing some time over there before the sudden shock of him passing away.
Yeah, that was incredibly sad news, eh? So how did the gig come about? Were you sort of expecting a gig? Were you training? I thought you were retired.
I think most people thought I retired. The club, I think. So I was always signed for this season, but our wee fella had just a little heart issue, and with the borders the way they were, I wasn't keen to leave NZ and then not be able to get back because the family weren't going to go. So I sort of said, I'm not keen to go with the chance that he might need some medical care and things like that. So I think the club found it easier just to say that I've retired, and that's what happened. And then when I sort of said, the borders are open up, our wee fella seemed to be going pretty good, I said, I'm keen to get back and finish off the season. So that's sort of how that worked out. But the club, I think, it was an easier way for them just to say I'd retired, and they probably didn't think I was coming back. So that's how that sort of played out.
Mate, so you were still training, thinking that you were going to go back there?
Yeah, to be fair, the borders didn't look like it was going to open up. So I was doing a bit of running. Gym-wise, not a whole lot. So Never been massive on the gym, but yeah, I was definitely doing a wee bit of running and things like that. But sort of I got a couple of weeks. When I got over there, we had a bye week the following week. So it sort of gave me a few weeks to get ready for the Japanese league, yeah.
And you didn't play a heck of a lot. I mean, it's pretty hard now with the foreign rule, there only being 4 foreigners allowed on the field. But every time you did get an opportunity, you obviously played extremely well, still got it.
Oh, look, it's a hard game to give up, so I really enjoyed getting back over and playing. Unfortunately for Cruds, he got his Achilles were pretty tight in the last few games, but that meant that I ended up playing centre with Lacanio Arm, who was good value actually. I really enjoyed getting over there, playing alongside him, and getting to know him too. Top dude, and I really enjoyed those last few weeks that I was there.
So then everyone wants to know, about 1 million questions came in about this. What's next for you?
Yeah.
Have you hung up the boots, or are you still looking for gigs?
At the moment I'm just going to weigh everything up. And then I don't want to say I'm retired, because then I set myself up for failure. So I'll just I'll sit on it for a bit, and then you never know. I suppose I'm getting older. I look 45, but I'm 35. But hopefully if there's an opportunity that pops up, we'll weigh it up then and go from there. Yeah.
So how is the body feeling?
It's actually feeling bloody good. I haven't played a whole lot of rugby over the last couple of years, and I really enjoyed the games I played over there, and it's actually, I think that time just to give it a bit of a rest has served me pretty well. So I hadn't done a lot of weights when I got over there, obviously, but running wise, I was still probably just at where I was from the last season, if not a wee bit better. So
sure.
So the body is actually feeling pretty good, but we'll see what happens.
So if the Highlanders came calling for the quarterfinal, would you be stepping up?
No, they're all sorted over there. I've done my time with the Highlanders, but I'll be supporting the boys and hopefully get a chance to knock over the Blues. We'll be underdogs, I would say, but you never know. Rugby, it's a bloody good game, and the fact that we just got to turn up and play bloody well on the night, and we'll be a chance. Yeah,
mate, you've done it before.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, just a bit of momentum. That's all we need, a bit of momentum, and away we go. But I'll definitely be rallying them behind the Highlanders as we go forward into the playoffs, hopefully.
Yeah. So and what about for Otago? Would you potentially look at playing for Otago in the Bunnings Cup?
So at the moment, they've just got like a wider training group where I'm going along and just doing a wee bit of coaching because Tom Donnelly's away with the under-20s and a couple of other coaches. So I'm just getting along there and just helping out on a Wednesday night. So, I'm sort of quite keen just to poke my nose into that sort of space and hopefully just pass on a wee bit of my learnings and things I've picked up over the years. And there's a good bunch of fellows that are meeting on a Wednesday night that obviously work through the week and then go along to trainings and play club footy on the weekend. So they're probably not guys that have got contracts at the moment, but that are trying to get one. So I'm quite enjoying that, yeah.
So would you put the boots on though?
No, at this stage, no. You never know, but at this stage, I'm full on. We've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
I'm coaching both of Annabelle and Wally's teams, so that's pretty full on.
Sure.
And doing them on a Saturday, and I sort of don't want to miss watching their games as well. So you never know. I'll see what happens.
And then that last one would be a Japan gig. That's probably the most likely one, isn't it? When the big Japan clubs come calling for you again. Is that the one you're a lot more likely to take?
To be fair, I think the States is a pretty interesting one for us. As a family, I think it's just hard because we've got a wee fella that's 7 months, Vinny, who, he's still not sleeping through the night or anything like that. So he's a big job for Katie. So we'll see how he tracks. But if Katie said let's do it, let's go over, then I'd be keen as mustard to get over and try the States. It looks like a pretty awesome competition there and a growing competition that's that's good to watch. So you never know.
Yeah, mate, a lot of guys are going over there. Have you heard from anyone over there how much they're enjoying it or anything?
Yeah, well, I heard from Tom Franklin actually. He went over and played in San Diego. I think himself, Dan Pryor. I think they just sort of said, right, we want a place by the beach. We want a couple of surfboards. Give us a wee bit of money to get by each week, and we'll be there. And so they signed over in San Diego, and when he came back, he said he loved it. So,
True.
he's definitely selling the American dream over there. Yeah.
So it's not really a money thing. It's more of a lifestyle thing. So obviously the Japan's sort of where you got the money perks, but is it in America you've got a lifestyle sort of gig? That's what you're chasing?
Yeah, I think it's a different way of life over there, and a lifestyle thing. As you said, I think that's why most of the Kiwi guys are actually doing a bit of both now, a bit of Japan and the States, and obviously Europe. But there's definitely a growing contingent of Kiwis over in the States really enjoying it. And I think, I saw the States the other day got the World Cup, in a few years' time. So I think the game's only going to grow, and I think that that league will grow too.
Definitely, and you've already mentioned you were getting into the coaching side of things. Is that where it would go, into a player, then player coach, into a coach?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that's for me or not, but I just thought I'd try it. I know there's a lot more in coaching than there is playing the game. I know how hard that is. I've seen coaches who get in early in the morning and don't leave till sort of 6 or 7 at night, and they're working on weekends. Working around the clock to make sure they're prepared. If it's not for the game in the weekend, then it's the following week. So that's not lost on me how hard that is. And I want to make sure I can balance with my family doing a wee bit of rugby coaching and things like that. So I'll see how that goes.
Mate, it's exciting times ahead for you, and I can definitely tell you're definitely not retired. There's going to be gigs coming out.
I'll see how we go, yeah. Are you doing a bit of coaching as well at the moment?
Yeah, I'm at Tasman, so I'm a little bit like you. I've just sort of dipped the toes in and slowly working my way out. But yeah, you're right. You do quickly find out how much coaches do behind the scenes, that you sort of take for granted as a player. Yeah,
sitting in front of a screen for a long time, coding things and doing a bit of admin.
Yeah, 100%. But anyway, it's always good to hear the stories from the start, and keen to hear how your sort of story started. Obviously, the legend that you are. Give us the rundown of your childhood.
I don't know about legend, but I had a good upbringing as far as we lived about 100 metres from a rugby field, so that was a good start.
Oh, yeah.
Had a whole lot of kids on our street that were into either playing rugby, cricket, tennis, whatever was going really. And so sometimes we were a bit lazy to get down to the rugby field, so we'd play, touch rugby on the street, try and dodge a few cars. We actually lived in a dead-end street, which meant that we could get away with it a bit more. Had a real good upbringing, went to King's High School, met some good mates, and I'd just say that I fell in love with the game of rugby early on, and I'd take a rugby ball everywhere pretty much to keep myself entertained. So yeah, a pretty good upbringing really.
Were you good at rugby?
Well, my parents early on, they didn't. They sort of waited until about under 7s, under 8s until they gave me a crack at it. I think mum and dad appreciated the weekends for a couple of years there, and then they decided to throw me in the mix. But I was just run-of-the-mill sort of player, but enjoyed the game and slowly chipped away at trying to get better, really.
And when did you start thinking this is your dream, or when did you think it was a possibility to potentially make a career out of it?
So it wasn't until... So I played for the Otago Sevens. We used to play up in Queensland. I don't know if you played that tournament up there. It was awesome. So we got most of the support being Otago. Between us and Otago country, we got a lot of support up there. And so I played a bit of Sevens. And so I managed to play one of the tournaments. And then from there, I played that tournament. And then a week later, the Highlanders were having a trial, just an inter-trial between each other. So Greg Cooper, who was the coach, he said, come along and just sort of sit on the bench. You you might get sort of 5 minutes. And then from there, Craig Clare was one of the fullbacks. And so he went down with 5 minutes. So I was sort of started to get up thinking, I might get a chance here. And then Glenn Horton went down as well within, that must have been 10 minutes. So I was sort of the neck cab off the rank. So I got a chance to play in the trial game, and then managed to get 70 minutes, and it was just one of those things where things managed to stick. The bounce of the ball went my way, and I'd go straight through the line and things like that. But a wee bit of fortune at the time, but that gave me a chance to get in the under-21s at the time. We weren't travelling anywhere, but we played Canada after the All Blacks played them up in Rotorua, and from there sort of things started to happen, and got an opportunity to play for Otago, which that was interesting. Otago at the time so we were playing Wellington first game, and so they were pretty stacked with All Blacks. They had somebody Ellison, Jose Gear, Piri Ripu, I think Rodney Soyalo was playing. It was pretty much an All Black team at the time.
Yeah.
And so we went up there for Otago, and that was my first game. And so we got into it, and I was playing fullback, and at the time it just felt like bull rush. Everyone was sort of breaking through from everywhere. And we lost by 70 points, and I thought, oh, well, this could be me. That could be my first and last. And I remember Dane Coles came on, and he was sort of in the same situation. We were just trying to get our careers going and things like that. And even like he broke through the line. I can't remember who he stepped, but Jenkins drives his way over the try line, then he's celebrating, hot dogging like he does. And I was thinking, this couldn't go any worse. And I'm looking at Colsey there, who's having a great old time with his debut. So that was my introduction. So I thought it'd be my first and last. But from there, I didn't really play the next few games. Steve Martin was the coach, and he sort of, fair enough, chucked me on the back burner for a wee bit. And then I started getting an opportunity from there.
True. So your pathway from school, were you not straight into an academy or anything like that? It was just thrown into this random trial game. Yeah,
so actually, first year out of school, I had a coach that was at King's High School who went over to Bristol, and he was coaching the old Colston's Collegiate High School over there.
Oh, yeah.
Which was a bit of a rugby school. So he said, straight out of school, he said, oh, well, come over here, work at the school, you just do odd jobs, and then play for their old boys team, which is called the Old Colstonians. So my first year out of school, I went and had a gap year over in Bristol, which I really enjoyed. So I had a full year over there, and I just worked at the school mainly doing PE. So I did a wee bit of PE, and then I was just filling gaps really all over the place. So like even at lunchtime, the receptionist, she'd go have her lunch, and I'd be answering phone calls at the office. Not Ben from accounts, but Ben from the office. So I'd actually race. So we lived close by to the school. I'd get back to the house and where we lived. I'd put on my shirt and tie and things like that, and get along to the reception. Do that, get back in my PE gears, and then that was sort of a bit of me. And then we trained twice a week. Real casual. It would be the equivalent of like a Prem 2, maybe seniors here. And so I really enjoyed it though. Like they made me feel pretty welcome getting over there, and they just really lived for training, playing the game on the weekend. And then the biggest one was going to the club room on a Saturday night in the weekends, where they'd often stitch me up. They'd have a pint of nasty, what they called it, every weekend, where they'd fill up a bit of Guinness. There'd be curry that they'd have for dinner that they'd chuck in a pint of nasty, and they'd give it to the player of the day. At the time, there was a lot of those Aussie beers, like the 4X and Fosters and things like that, and they'd fill up a beer and then they'd give it to the player of the day. And I think, a lot of the time they thought it would be funny if they just gave it to me every time. So, and probably some of the other ones wouldn't attempt it. But I was 18, 19 at the time, and thought I'd better stick to the tradition. So, I really enjoyed my time over there. Actually, Bristol was good, and thanks to Daryl Patterson, I got an opportunity over there.
But you mentioned going into the Otago environment. We've already heard stories from Craig Newby, etc., on how sort of loose it was down there, especially on the piss, playing for Otago. Was it the same when you went in there?
Yeah, early days. Yeah, Newbs was there when I first went in. He must have been. He must have had a bit of money back then, because I remember he even paid off like Khan Hesketh at one point. It must have been after a game. He couldn't be bothered packing his bag up and getting his kit all ready. So he paid Khan Hesketh at the time, I think it was like $20 or $30 to pack up all his bag and get him all sorted, so that he didn't have to do that after a game. So, but I remember at the time it was like we had a states committee. And so after, as I said before, that first game against the Wellington team, we decided we'd go for a beer, because myself, George Whitelock, and Brett Mather, it was our first games against Wellington, and we thought we'd just lost. Well, it was a heavy loss, but we thought, it was a milestone for us, so we thought we'd go have a beer. But at the time, we had a Monteith, and the rule was you just got to stick to Speight's. So it was pretty big back then that you made sure that you stick to Speight's. And yeah, I don't know who it was, but we must have drunk a Monteith. The very first beer we had when we'd gone out after the game, we had a Monteith, and I don't know who it was. No one really came forward, but yeah, that was called that meant that the devil was inside us, and we had to purge the devil. So they actually gave it a couple of weeks until they decided that we needed to get it out. So that was pretty old school back then, and it wouldn't happen now. But that meant that there was only one way to sort of get the devil out, and that was to drink Speight's until the Monteith had come out. And so Steve Cumberland, actually at the time, he was watching us, and he was deciding when that devil would come out. And it was just a bit of old school, but definitely things have changed in that space. We did have a long turnaround, but I remember Brent Mather and George Whitelock and myself, we regretted drinking Monteith at the time. I do know now, like even the Highlanders and Otago, like we get given like a chart of all the Speight's and Lion Nathan products, so you can go through, and you can, when you get to a bar, you can say, oh well, these are the ones that are, we can have. So we didn't have that back then. It was probably a bit silly to drink Monteith, but I suppose it was just that relationship that we had with Speight's was always pretty big back then. They looked after Otago, they looked after the Highlanders, and it was just a bit of a way to repay them, and a wee bit of a tradition at the time.
But you got the devil out?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It took a wee bit, but we got it out. Yeah.
So good. And then going from Otago, you quite quickly made your way into the Highlanders sort of environment, didn't you? So talk me through that sort of process.
Yeah, so it was 2007 that we played that Wellington game. Didn't get a whole lot of game time the rest of that year. Yeah. And then 2008 managed to get a bit more consistency of games. And so then I made the Highlanders in 2009 from there. And managed to sort of start the first couple of games. And I think the big thing I found with Super Rugby was if you were playing every week, it became a bit easier. It became that consistency of playing every week gave you a better performance, I found. And so I definitely made heaps of mistakes early on. And there was Monday reviews that I'd go into and wonder if I'd be playing again in the weekend, because it was pretty obvious that there was definitely mistakes and flaws in my game. But I was really lucky that Glenn Moore gave me the chance to keep playing, and he sort of showed a lot of faith in me at the time to keep playing every week, and that sort of, I thought that set me up for the years to come. Yeah.
Were you a confident player, or did you always feel like they have a little bit of doubt around your game?
I think early on it was a real interesting period as to whether I was up to that level or not. Like I felt definitely confident playing club rugby, and things were going pretty well in that space. And then I suppose every time you sort of go up a level, you just I always sort of took a wee bit just to figure out that I could match it with the players at that time and the teams that were going around. So that was definitely a learning as I went through.
And what was it about the Highlanders sort of culture that you loved so much?
Yeah, so I was like a lot of kids growing up in Dunedin that I went along to Carisbrook, watched the likes of Brownie and Pete Alatini and Jeff Wilson, Brendan Laney, all those kind of guys, Tane Randall, that we just had a pretty good team to watch when I was younger. So I remember watching them. They really enjoyed their rugby. They looked like they got on well. And I remember them, having different celebrations when they'd score tries. And you just watched on thinking, that looked like a good environment to be in. And they had their own, I think the Highlanders had our own way of going about playing rugby and our weeks. And that's what I saw, and then obviously got to be a part of it later on, which I really enjoyed.
And when you sort of went into that environment, it's probably fair to say that the Highlanders were struggling a little bit. They were always sort of the lower end of the table, but you were there and sort of turned it around and obviously got them right to the top in that 2015. So what was the turnaround there? What did you guys do?
Yeah, so early on when I was in there, we did really battle. We would have the odd good game, but consistency of how we performed as a team wasn't there. So what turned it around, I think, we were lucky enough to, like, Jamie Joseph came in 2010, 2011, and he came in, brought a bit of, I suppose, a hard-nosed approach. Like, we did a lot of down-ups and had this mentality that we wanted to go for 12 rounds, which was like a boxing analogy that, we wanted to show a lot of fight. We might not have had the talent that some of the other teams had, but we were not going to let our mates down, and we were going to work hard for each other. So that was installed in us from Jamie. And then Jamie was obviously pretty hard-nosed, but then Tony Brown came along, and Brownie was probably on the flip side, like the yin to James Yang, and the fact that he was a lot about innovation, and he was a big around culture, and he was probably a bit more sort of like work beside you and try and work it out together, whereas Jamie was very much, he was strong driver of keeping people accountable. Not that Brownie wasn't, but he would often say it how it was, and sort of Brownie, the way that he was innovative and things like that, it sort of worked in our favour because they both managed to sort of point us in the direction of getting better as a team from there. And I think that led to, we made the playoffs. We lost in the playoffs, but then, the next few years that set us up for winning it in 2015. And we probably learned a lot when we actually, in 2013, we went in, Jamie went and recruited a lot of big name All Blacks at the time, but we probably didn't work hard enough on our culture and what we're about. And we probably relied on that talent of having a lot of All Blacks. And that was a good learning at the time.
Yeah. Was that the famous year where you guys were 0-8?
Yeah, 0-8. Yeah, 0-8. It wasn't a good year. So we really struggled. But the thing was, it was tight. It wasn't like we were losing by large margins. We would lose by between 3 and 7 points. I think there was like 5 games in a row where we'd lose between 3 and 7 points. So, that takes its toll over those few weeks. But I think that actually set us up for 2015 because we learnt what we're about as a team, what our culture was about, what our environment was. And I've learned a lot from Jamie and Brownie, and the fact that if your culture and your environment's right, that your rugby can actually piggyback off the back of that. And there's some things that, your culture and your environment can show within a game that you can practice all day long. But unless those things are right, people won't work hard for each other.
And when did you realise in 2015 that you had the culture to win a competition?
I think, we started to get a bit of a roll on. We played the Chiefs down in Invercargill. No one really likes, especially visiting teams going down to Invercargill to play, but we really enjoyed getting down there. Got a lot of support, and we enjoyed getting down there. And so we managed to sort of, I remember Waisake scoring some freakish tries down there, and then we sort of got a wee bit of momentum, and then we played the Chiefs a couple of weeks later in the quarterfinal and beat them again, and you could just feel a bit of momentum coming our way, and I knew our culture and environment was good because the boys were pretty relaxed in the way that we were playing, and we sort of felt like we didn't have a whole lot to lose because in a way we're probably underdogs right from the get-go of winning the competition. You guys had beaten us well and truly during the round robin stages. I know Jerry Collins had passed away, and you guys were pretty fired up to put out a good performance in the round robin sort of stages. So like the back end of the season, we managed to get that momentum, and that gave us a bit of a chance. And then we beat the Waratahs over in Sydney. And I remember a big thing of that was in the newspaper the day we played. It came out and it had how many Wallabies they had in their forward pack and how many All Blacks we had in ours. And I don't think at the time I don't even know if we had one. But we had a pretty good crew that would work hard for each other. And I remember Jamie used that as he was pretty good at his motivational speeches, and he sort of pulled that out of nowhere just before the game and listed off what this reporter had said and that we were not a chance and things like that. And so the forwards had arced up, and that's how we managed to I think get one over the Waratahs that day. And then all of a sudden we're in the final, and then anyone's a chance in a final, and that's when we played you boys.
Yeah, mate, and to be fair, going into that final, it was pretty much the same. If you compared the teams on paper, the probably only person you'd take from the Highlanders into the Hurricanes would be swap the two fullbacks, and you've got pretty much the All Black squad.
Yeah. No,
But on
not
paper,
at all.
like the Hurricanes
No, I
team
remember
was
you-
stacked.
I remember you jibbing me in that game, actually. I don't normally get in a fullback sort of fight during the game, but I remember you giving me a bit at times, and I was sort of looking over thinking,
Did I?
what's going on here? Yeah.
But what do you remember about that game? Like, obviously, massive crowd, huge occasion, heaps of Highlanders fans had come up. Were you always pretty comfortable that you were going to get the job done?
I don't know about comfortable. I still doubt whether Elliot got that down. I'll tell him that too. But yeah, I remember the week actually was a pretty good week in the fact of everyone from round home was sort of starting to think about getting tickets, travelling up. My
Yeah.
parents and Katie's parents and Katie and Annabelle at the time came up. And then there was Lashes. I don't know if you remember Lashes, but
yeah.
he was making these speeches on a Thursday and Friday that would they sort of ended up being pretty legendary. And then there was that, is it the Shepherd's Arms, I think, that a whole lot of people were starting to meet there before the game. And all of a sudden there was just a lot of excitement about getting up to Wellington. And then I remember getting along to the stadium. And you know what it's like at Westpac Stadium. Normally you're chucking a bit of grass up and it's going every way. But it was one of those nights where it was just, there was no wind to speak of. It was a perfect night to play rugby, and I suppose you would have been the same. It sort of gets you excited that, you know, we're going to have a pretty good, entertaining game of rugby, and that's what happened. I remember the kickoff. I don't think it stopped for a while. It sort of went from side to side. Everyone was having a crack, and I remember after sort of 5 minutes thinking, if we keep this sort of pace up, you know, everyone could be out on their feet by 80 minutes. So, that's sort of what I remember from that final, yeah.
Mate, and then when the whistle went, what was the feeling like?
It was pretty unreal, actually. I know I looked across at you guys and you were pretty deflated, as you should be. But, hey, you went on to win the one the next year. So, but we had the likes of Jamie and Brownie and I remember Andy Watts and a whole lot of guys that had obviously put in a lot of work to get us to where we were sideline ready for that final whistle to go. And then, you know, they put a lot of time and effort in. And, it was just an awesome feeling. And then, you know, the boys were pretty fizzed up that, you know, we'd done it, and then got into the changing room, and then the likes of your Lashes, he came in and, I don't know, he gave another spiel, and the boys were charling again, and then, you know, Shane Christie, he was full Highlanders cap for the rest of the night, and we went back to where we were staying and met family and friends and things like that, and took the trophy back there and had a good night. So, yeah, it was definitely one of my best memories of rugby in general, yeah.
Is that when the sort of Bender with Bender started after that?
That nickname actually came around when I was playing for Green Island. So there was, so that was, I should have, when I first turned up to Green Island, they said, what's your nickname? It was Smithy at the time. But they said, I don't think they liked that nickname. So there was a guy, Matt Adair, so they called him Mattress. And so obviously pretty original. They just came from, my nickname came from Ben, but I haven't heard that. Ben.
Yeah, so you've sort of picked up this reputation of being unreal on a bender from just a made-up nickname.
Yeah, which is probably, it's based on a lie, to be fair. I'm horrible.
Oh, so it was just Shane Christie in the kit. You didn't follow him for too many days.
No, I think he actually was meant to play for Māori on like a Monday or something, but he was still going on the fact that I think he turned that down because he was still in his kit going for it. Yeah.
Unreal, eh? But I do need to talk about your All Black career, so I'm pretty keen to hear a little bit more about that. So is it true that you made the All Blacks after one super season, was it?
Yeah, so 2009 was my first super season, and then, got a chance at the end of your tour. So I was sort of like a young kid, really, that was going into that All Black environment. That was, I suppose, rubbing shoulders with guys like Dan Carter and Richie McCaw and that. And I got a couple of opportunities at the back end of 2009. We played Italy, obviously in Italy, in Milan, and that was pretty awesome experience, pretty surreal getting out there and playing for the All Blacks. And definitely learnt a lot in that tour and watched professionals and guys that have played a lot of Test rugby go about their weekly schedules and how organised they were and how they prepared for Test matches and things like that. I think, that helped probably progress my own rugby and learnt a lot off those kind of players, yeah.
And when you have a rapid rise into the All Blacks like that, did you feel comfortable in the environment or did you feel well out of your depth?
Nah, I felt real uncomfortable, that's for sure. And I think you never are comfortable in the All Black environment. It's one of those environments you're always on your toes. And
True.
Going into that environment, it was definitely a massive sort of shock. And I went in there with Zach Guilford and Mike Delaney at the time. So there was the three of us that were eyes wide open going into that. And a pretty awesome experience now looking back at it. And we first started in Japan. We played Australia and Japan and then moved on to the India tour. It was like a 6-week tour, which was quite a big tour at the time. So, definitely you're never comfortable in that All Black environment. And, definitely see people like Manunu and that. And, it can be pretty intimidating when you first sort of walk into that sort of environment. And but at the same time, like, awesome learnings, awesome that they sort of get alongside you, helped progress your game. And then you get the best coaching. We had Ted at the time and Steve Hansen, Wayne Smith, but you never come to remember Wayne Smith. One of my first trainings, I had my socks down, just hadn't had a chance, like everything going on, hadn't had a chance to pull them up. And he saw me just before training. He's like, "Well, are you a socks down kind of player? Are you? Is that your character?" And I sort of, quickly whipped my socks up. And then from there, I probably just, everything that was going on, I was sort of double checking things and making sure that I was doing things right. And that sort of stuck with me, just, I suppose, like Wayne Smith always driving standards and a little thing like not having your sock pulled up. He was calling people up on it and just always driving just little standards, and that was off the field before you even got onto the training paddock. Yeah.
So was that even at the back end of your career? You still didn't feel comfortable in there, even though you're the All Black legend? Everyone was looking up to you.
Oh no, I don't think you're ever comfortable. You always, there's a lot of, like, in that All Black environment, there's a lot of pressure on the whole team to perform, and I think the fact that you're never comfortable in there means that everyone's the same. I suppose I wouldn't be the first one to say that you're always trying to get your own process right, your preparation, and the way that the coaches set up the weeks, in a review and things like that. They're always pushing the point as to making sure that we get better, even, after performing really well against teams and putting a few points on teams. You're always nervy going into the reviews on a Monday, because that's probably where they pick things apart the most after a good win, and made sure that, people were accountable. And, Shag was probably pretty ruthless at times at the team review on a Monday, but you knew it was always for the benefit of the team,
Yeah. So it was a pretty ruthless start for you as well. Obviously, that second year you weren't picked. Did you get much feedback around that? But then the opportunity came for you to go to the Commonwealth Games with the New Zealand Sevens side as well. So
2009, the Super Rugby, I was really happy with how I was tracking, and then into the NPC. But then, the All Blacks, like the opportunities I got, like I was okay, but I wasn't great, and I knew that I had a lot to work on. 2010 came back and knew that there was probably, at that level, that I needed to probably perform at a better level to get more opportunities going forward. So I wasn't too surprised in 2010 when I didn't make it. It was probably a realisation that I just needed to be better. And then I got an opportunity to go to the Commonwealth Games. Pretty awesome. Wayne Smith I think he managed to set that up for me and talk to Titch and say, I would be able to sort of contribute to that environment and that campaign. So I went and played sevens over in Delhi. There was Jose, Zach. At the time, I think they were the same as me, and on the outer a wee bit with the All Blacks, and Liam Messon was playing. So I played sevens and won a Commonwealth Games gold medal. Kurt Baker scored a hell of a try to beat them in the last sort of seconds, and that was pretty cool actually. And then seeing how we had like Lotte Rakambula, Tamasi Tama, guys like that, the sevens legends that they were awesome, man. They came in, they brought us into that environment, they made us feel pretty welcome, and then right from the get-go, they were trying to teach us the game of seven. So yeah, and we went to because we were sort of acclimatizing to the conditions that were going to be over in Delhi. We went to Dubai first, and man, it was hot, and Titch just ran the shit out of us. So I remember at one point there was a bit of shade down one touchline, and it was important to get down that side if you needed it, because it was pretty brutal, but it sort of set us up for a good Commonwealth Games. And yeah, I went through the whole touch regime and definitely saw what everyone was talking about as far as how ruthless he was in preparing his teams and making sure they were ready for a sevens tournament. Yeah.
And how hard did you find that adjustment to the 7-man game? Obviously, you'd played a little bit at Queenstown, you mentioned earlier, but not a huge amount, and obviously the conditioning aspect of it as well.
Yeah, so I played a wee bit over at that Queenstown tournament, but I actually really enjoyed that transition. A wee bit more space, obviously, in sevens, a chance to. I think when you work on, like, when you go to sevens, it actually helps coming back to 15s. So the conditioning part of it was massive. We were, I reckon, going into Delhi, we were the best team there as far as conditioning wise, and then off the back of that, coming back into 15s it really set me up then to to give 15s another good crack. And I was pretty lucky to get that experience that was my first experience with the All Black Sevens, was going to that Commonwealth Games. So I was lucky that it was an opportunity to play at a big event like the Commonwealth Games. And yeah, I suppose pretty lucky looking back that just the timing wise that I managed to do that. Yeah.
And then the following year, you obviously would have had your goals set on making that Rugby World Cup squad, 2011, which unfortunately you did miss out on that. How hard was that one for you to take?
Yeah, well, that was a goal. Like everyone else playing New Zealand and playing rugby in New Zealand, that was the goal to. And I suppose there was a lot of excitement that it was back in New Zealand. There was a chance for us to probably rectify what had happened in 2007. So it was massive to try and push for that, but it wasn't to be. There was really good outside backs in New Zealand in 2011, and yeah, it just wasn't my moment to have a crack in an event like that. So had to sort of just bide my time, and yeah, I was lucky enough in the following years to get a crack back in the environment and to be able to then play more tests from there. But at the same time, awesome to see us as All Blacks perform really well in a tournament like that. Win the World Cup, New Zealand get right in behind us, and yeah, it was just different for me. It was watching in front of the TV and having a few beers. So yeah, a lot different to what I sort of imagined. I suppose at the start of 2011 that might have been a chance to play, but just didn't work out that way.
Did you ever think about telling Graham Henry that you could play 10?
I would have had a crack at it, but yeah, might have been an opportunity. Might be my only in that year, but yeah, I actually played 10 back in the day. But
I know, mate. I reckon if Graham Henry knew that, it might have been your movie, not Beaver's.
Jeez, yeah, he's still reaping the benefits, old Beaver. He's still, still cashing in on that, which is good to see. He deserves it because he obviously copped a wee bit for a while there, and then good to see him turn it around, and he deserves everything he gets, old Beaver.
Yeah, mate, he's a champion. But for you, fast forwarding 4 years, 2015 World Cup, this is where you'd sort of cemented yourself as an All Black, and talk to me about this Rugby World Cup for you.
Yeah, 2015, a good year. Obviously, we'd managed to beat you boys in the final for the Super Rugby, and yeah, it was. Yeah, we'd had a couple of good years leading up to that World Cup. 2013, we'd managed to do a calendar year without dropping a game, and then there's obviously a lot of excitement going into that tournament. It's been something that I've missed out on in 2011, and there was a lot of pressure being over in the UK, but I could imagine that was tenfold being back here in New Zealand. So it was actually quite good to get over there. We had a pretty sort of low-key start to the tournament, and the fact we were there early, got a good amount of training in. That wasn't low-key, that was pretty high pressure. The trainings was beating the shit out of each other for a few weeks there, even when the pool games were going. So, yeah, awesome experience. And my family ended up coming over near the end of pool play, and hoping that I suppose we were going to stay there till the end. Otherwise, we'd all be packing up our bags and going home. So, it worked out pretty good in the end.
Oh, worked out very well. And what do you remember about that final series?
Yeah, I remember France. There was, because everyone knew what happened in 2007, there was definitely a lot of tension going into that game. But I thought we managed to put that to bed, I suppose, and play really good footy against the French. And I thought we played a pretty expensive game, and then things started to stick. And then I think, in the pool play, we weren't actually playing that good at rugby. So when it got to playoffs, I think we'd set ourselves up really well in the fact of, we were really well prepared. And then, we got a good performance against France. And then we knew that South Africa were dangerous. So we played them in the semi, and we knew it was going to be a bit different to that quarter final. And I remember watching at the time, it was a massive shock when Japan beat them, but they turned that around, and then they started to perform really well. And we only just scraped through against them, to be fair. Yeah. Sam Whitelock stole a line out sort of 20 metres from our own line, and that was probably the difference. There wasn't much in it. And then all of a sudden we were playing Aussie in the final, and that was a big week. It sort of felt like it went forever before that game sort of kicked off. And the final, I just remember probably the start and the fact that, guys like Conrad Smith and Richie and everyone really was just teeing off. And defensively, we actually shut them out for the first 5 or 10 minutes, and bodies were sort of being thrown everywhere. So that was a big memory of mine, probably. And then, I managed to get 10 in the bin, my first yellow card in professional rugby.
Oh, was it?
Not a good time to do it in the World Cup final. And I remember sitting on the bench thinking, geez, and they scored 2 tries when I was on the bench, and thinking, geez, I hope we get this across the line, because otherwise, I could be battling to get back to New Zealand here. I'm going to have to find somewhere else, move the family, and I don't know, go live somewhere else and apply my trade somewhere else. So that was scary times, that 10 minutes in the bin. But lucky to get back on the field, and we sort of pulled through after that and managed to get it done. And then, obviously a couple of good days following that, and getting home and the parades and everything like that. New Zealand was sort of going off, and awesome memories, really. Yeah.
Was that a genuine fear on the bench that you might not be able to return home? Is that where the mind's going? Is your mind just racing sitting there watching that?
Mine was racing, yeah. And you're trying to tell yourself, no, don't think like that. But it definitely is. Thinking, where am I going to go? And luckily, Conrad Smith came over while I was getting that 10 minutes for that yellow card, and he came over and he sort of said, you're all good, don't worry, don't stress, we're good, we've got this. And it was only like a couple of comments from him, but it meant a lot at the time, because you feel pretty isolated. I was sitting on a chair, no one really to talk to or to communicate with, and him, just because they were still staying warm in that, and some of the boys were warming up to come over and just have a quick yarn. That's snaky for me. He knew the thoughts that were going through my head, and just the top team man, really. Snaky pretty well, but definitely scary time sitting on that bench.
Mate, but then you went back on and you completely made up for it, for sure, because contributed to probably the greatest All Black try in the history of the game. What do you remember about that one, putting that kick through, watching Bodie go?
I just remember that Drew Mitchell sort of spilled the ball, just sort of popped up, and then I didn't know that sort of Bodie was coming through the middle. I just sort of had a step, and then sort of towed it ahead, probably shin kicked it ahead, Lima would say, and then he just came out of nowhere like Bodie does, and I suppose that sort of sealed it for us. And from there, she was a done deal. And then DC goes and kicks it with his wrong foot. But that was awesome to get back out there, I suppose, after that yellow card, and to be able to do something in a positive light rather than being chucked on that bloody chair for a tip tackle. That was definitely a better way to finish, and a good couple of days followed.
What is that next couple of days like as a All Black World Cup winner?
It was awesome. It was I think there was a pretty cool time in the fact that we got back to the hotel where we were staying. We went just into the team room. There was obviously a lot of family and stuff around the hotel, but it was just an awesome opportunity to get down in the team room. The World Cup was there. There was no real official stuff the night after the World Cup final, so I quite enjoyed that because it was, there was a lot of bloody pressure on us to perform well that day, and then to be able to just sit down, have a couple of beers, talk a bit of shit, and sit there with the World Cup. That was pretty pretty special and pretty good times. And I remember like William Appiata was there because he was a big part of our defence and our mindset and everything like that. And like people like that, he was down in the team room sharing his stories and having a beer or two. Yeah, it was awesome,
mate. How good! And then fast forwarding another 4 years, Rugby World Cup in Japan. Talk to me about this campaign and what it was like for you.
Yeah, it was a tough campaign for everyone, really. I think we were tracking pretty well in the fact that we played Ireland in that quarter final, and the boys played pretty well. And then I don't know. I suppose that looking back, maybe that gave us a false sense of security going into the semi-final. And England were fired up. You could tell that they were well prepared. They managed tactically to probably be a bit better than us that day, and I was running the waters, but it hurt for everyone involved that game, and a good lesson, I suppose, in out preparing teams. Like they just beat us to the punch and everything, and it hurts to say that, but they did and deserved to go on to the final. But I would have rather sort of been running waters in the final and watch the team go on and win, but. It was good to be able to play in the third and fourth game and play alongside guys like Ryan Crotty and Sonny Bill Williams and Kieran Reid and Matt Todd and guys like that had played their last games as well. And then people like, Colsey and that I played a lot of rugby with over the years. It was pretty awesome to be able to finish in that way for me, although I would have rather us been in the final. It was awesome to get one last chance in the black jersey and play in that third and fourth player.
How hard is it for you to sort of put your ego aside and put the team first when you're not selected in big matches like this where, you've been training so hard to get this opportunity and then you're just left out of that squad? I'm sure you felt like you could have contributed to that game.
Yeah, I think my mindset was like that whole selection process, that was out of my control. So as soon as I wasn't selected, there was nothing I could do about it. It was just going on to try and prepare the team as well as I could for those playoff games. And I think everyone in that same space was the same. So I was lucky enough to have, Crotts was the same, Ryan Crotty was the same. So we had good yarns through that time, and we both had that same sort of mindset to prepare the team really well. But at the same time, it hurt. So it was good to be able to go and talk to Crotts and let a bit of steam off, but then not sort of try and bring that back into the team. Like we attacked that and tried to prepare the team as well as we could. And it was a tough one, that England game to watch, because everything leading up to that we'd prepared really well.
Yeah, and when you're running water in that game, like what sort of messages are you getting? Is it pretty intense or is it all pretty calm, cool, collected out there?
It was actually really calm. Like Fozzie was giving a lot of messages as to the backs, as to how we could tactically be a wee bit better. With they were kicking really smartly and pressuring us, and it was a matter of like how just like a couple of clear messages, but as to what we could have done better. But at the time, the coaches were really calm. But it's a tough one because you're trying to give the guys everything they need to try and turn things around, especially because momentum, they had all the momentum. They had just you've played a lot of rugby, when things just aren't sticking and you feel like you're under the pump, and that was definitely one of those games that was the case.
One thing that you did also mention is that last game against Wales, almost a fairy tale way to go out for you, without it being a final. I guess that was the next best thing. What a way to finish.
Yeah, it was a good way to finish. As I said before, like having all those players that I played a lot of rugby with, that was awesome to get one last game in and to enjoy it really. Like I
remember talking to Katie, and she's just like, this is the last time you get to do it, so make sure that you get out there and enjoy it. And I had Katie and the kids, my two oldest, were there in Japan. My parents were there. Katie's parents were there. My uncle was there, and that sort of just sort of everything fell into place in that game. The fact that we managed to win, got a couple of meat pies, which always helps, and I think the biggest thing is we actually just enjoyed that last game, and it was pretty awesome actually.
Mate, it did look like that, to be fair, as well. And what an All Black career that you had. Incredible stuff. But talk to me about your next step, which somehow you ended up in Po. How did this one come about?
Yeah, so I'd actually signed with Kobe, but I couldn't sign until halfway through 2020.
Oh,
so there was like a patch of sort of 7 or 8 months where I wasn't playing because they obviously had Brody Retallick and Dean Carter on the book, so there was no space for anyone else really. So that meant that I had a period of 8 months where I was doing nothing. So Poe actually said, "Oh, well, do you want to come over and do a short-term gig?" And so we thought, what an opportunity to go to France, live there. Conrad was over there, Colin Slade, Tom Taylor, Daniel Ramsey, so a few Kiwis, so a good Kiwi connection. So got over to Po, travelled with the two kids, so it was a bit of a mission at the time. Got over there. Conrad actually picked us up. He picked us up in Bordeaux and drove us back to Po, which was good of him. And then, everything was a bit of a blur actually when we first got over. So, the kids didn't sleep well that first night. Conrad knocked on the door earlier the next day and then sort of said, "Oh, well, I'll take you to the club. We're going to do a medical," which everyone has to do a medical when they first get over there, which I thought was pretty crack up because I went to the medical and then, there was just your Joe average workers there on an exercycle going until they couldn't go anymore. So, and they didn't look like they were in peak condition. So they were sitting there toiling away, and I was sort of looking at Conrad, and then I sort of had a crack on it and passed my medical, and then we went through a few of the sponsors and did that kind of thing. And then when I first turned up, I knew that I wasn't going to play there was actually 10 days before I was playing the first game. Well, just must have been over 10 days. And then Conrad, said, "Oh, well," the club had said, "Look, you turn up, you get a chance to find your feet, and then we'll get you in there." And so I went along to training, and then Conrad was showing me around the facility and showing me, this is a gym, and the boys were having a meeting. So I said, "Oh, it'd be a great opportunity to come and meet the guys and come into the team meeting." So I got to the team meeting, and they were naming the team for that weekend. And so the coach got up and rattled off the team, and then got to fullback, and he said my name. And so I was looking at Conrad, like, hang on a minute, I'm supposed to have a bit of time here before I'm in the mix. And so afterwards, they pulled me aside and sort of said, and coach at the time said, "Oh no, we can take him out. I said, "Look, you put me in there now, I'll play." So that was my introduction and for the team meeting to start with. And then ended up playing, a couple of days later. And then I really enjoyed Po, but I had a bit of a rough run there too. Really, my first game we played Stade Francais, and I went to fend a guy, but I couldn't quite get full extension on my arm, and so I sort of managed to, cop him just under the neck, but then it sort of rolled up and just clipped his chin.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that might be a penalty, and then it ended up being a red card. So that meant I had to go to the judiciary, and so I flew from Po up to judiciary. I said, "Oh, well, they seem real friendly. The guys, I obviously didn't speak French. I took the coach up, had a translator. Everything was going pretty well, and then we were flying back down to Po, and I heard that I'd got 4 weeks for it. So that meant that I missed all the games that were over that Christmas, New Year period, which is actually a pretty cool time to play over there because you get big crowds. They really enjoy it. They get right in behind the team. So I actually missed that sort of first 4 weeks, and then I played a couple of games, and then COVID hit in. So that experience probably we were really looking forward to. We still got a bit of travelling in. We went to Andorra, did a bit of skiing with the kids, went to Biarritz, which was a pretty cool place to, go and check out the beaches, and then got down to San Sebastian one weekend, got to Bordeaux to check out the wineries and things like that. But just as things were starting to get good, and the fact that the weather was coming wide and we had these plans to sort of trip around Europe in the summer, So yeah, COVID sort of stuffed them up, and we ended up doing a sort of 5 or 6 week isolation. In France, we were moved in with Luke and Claire Whitelock, with Katie and the 2 kids. So they did well to say, "Oh, come stay with us," because we thought, oh, we didn't want to be too isolated where we were living. And then Colin Slade and his family were right next door, so we whacked a hole in the fence, and it sort of became a bit of like communal living between the families. So,
Sure.
and ended up coming home after that. So it was it was interesting times just with COVID and things like that.
Yeah, mate, that's crazy. And then you were off to Japan, right?
Yeah, so then I did Japan off the back of that at the end of 2020. I ended up doing the first couple of months by myself. Then the family came over. Things were still a bit crazy with COVID and the fact that, you got to do the isolations, got over there. And we didn't catch it early on somehow. We had quite a few cases within the team, and the competition got put back to start with when we got over there. I think there was 7 or 8 teams that had COVID, so they couldn't really run the competition. So we ended up just waiting, really. And then I just remember it being a whole lot of isolations, which wasn't really what Japan was about. Lucky enough, when I got back, we didn't have all those isolations and things like that. And Japan's now starting to open up, and it'll be good for whoever goes over there now to experience it, because we're going to return to what Japan was about, and the fact that you can experience the culture. You can come and go from New Zealand to Japan a bit more to see family, and obviously the rugby, hopefully it starts to just move on with things, and the fact that if there's COVID cases, those guys just get put to the side and they keep playing the games, which will be a lot easier going forward.
Yeah. And how did you find the rugby in Japan? How did it compare to all your other places?
It was a bit of an eye-opener going from France and Po, where it was probably, the game was probably a wee bit slower, but more physical and a lot more contact. We went to Japan and it was probably the opposite, and it was a lot faster, but you'd go to a ruck and before you know it, the ball would be moved and it would be out of there. So I actually really enjoyed the footy in Japan and the way that it was played. Yeah, really sort of fast, quick flowing game that sort of probably suited how I wanted to play. And also watching Kobelco Steelers over the years, they played a pretty good brand of rugby. So yeah, it was obviously exciting to get over and to experience that.
And did your family enjoy Japan? Did they go the first time?
Yeah, so they went the first time. It was really tough. They enjoyed definitely parts of Japan, and the fact of we bought a company bike, so the kids were biking down to school. Yeah. Got to experience different foods and things like that. A bit of a test for the kids, see what they would eat and not eat, and just got a cool experience to try something else. But COVID sort of made it pretty tough, in the fact that there was always different isolations where we'd get stuck for 2 weeks, and there'd be COVID within the school, so that would mean they'd have to sort of stay in the apartment and things like that. So that's sort of why we decided that they wouldn't go back this last trip that I did, but they'd get a bit more consistency with schooling and things like that. But I definitely think going forward, if we were to be signing now and going for another 2 years, it would be a lot easier for the family to go over and experience Japan the way it should be. And not just Japan, like the rest of the world started to open up. And it was pretty awesome to see travelling back that, things are just sort of starting to crack on, and there's a bit of normality starting to appear within travel and things like that.
100%. And mate, sounds like you're definitely going back there.
No. Yeah. I have to run that past the boss. So pretty awesome, so, as you know.
But for you, obviously we've spoken about you haven't quite retired yet, but when you do retire, what are the plans?
So pretty keen to sort of follow the kids around and get them into sport and be real active and have a lifestyle where I can try and, if they've got something that I need to go to as far as like a competition or something to do with the school camp or something like that, I'm pretty keen to be involved with them going forward and being able to be flexible with their lifestyles. Yeah. So that's a big part of what I want to do. But then I'm sort of having a dabble within the property market, tough times at the moment, but I've got a mate of mine, David Grant, who sort of works at Stewart's down here in a building firm that was sort of starting to do bits and pieces around the place that I'm very much a novice, but starting to learn how to sort of, do a bit of property development and things like that. So I'll do a wee dabble in that, and in between that and coaching, I'll see where that leads, and you never know, yeah.
Mate, Hissing taking over Dunedin property.
No, I don't know about that. Just trying to learn a wee bit more. And, I think Jamie Joseph owns half of Dunedin, so I have to get some of his property off him.
Oh, mate. Well, as always, we have gone to our Instagram for some questions, and we have had thousands come in for you. First question: how come there's a man cave sponsored by Spates, but he doesn't let the lads in it?
Who's this from? Tom Franklin?
Banksy.
Oh, Banksy, here he is. He's been down there having a beer. I've never been invited to Banksy's house, so I'm still waiting.
Okay, next one. Does he still have cobwebs on his wallet?
Yeah, very much so. It's about saving money where we can. So who was that from?
Lima
Safawanga. Oh, it's rich coming from him.
Have you always been pretty sensible with your money? You've obviously made a fair bit throughout your career. You're in a pretty good position coming towards the end of it.
I've always thought I knew that. Sort of had to try and be a wee bit smart with money, knowing that once the dream's over and rugby finishes, that hopefully I can sort of, as a family, we can sort of set ourselves up going forward and not buy Lima Sopawanga. Too many beers will help.
Mate, in the rugby scene, if you're not bringing in trays of beers, you're labelled a tight ass, eh?
Yeah, I know. That's purely where we coming from.
Okay, next one. Next one is from our major sponsor, Swish, and I know you're on Swish too, so, mate, huge opportunity for the listeners to get a video shout-out from the great man himself. But if you could get a video shout-out from any celebrity, who would it be and why?
Any celebrity? I suppose Tom Brady's a big one for me. He's the greatest of all time in my books, and what he's done, especially at the age he's done it, that's what I admire. That he's into his 40s, he's putting a lot of time into his recovery, how he plays. It's obvious, but shout out from him would be up there.
Mate, bit of a lookalike too, eh?
A lookalike.
You get that often?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, all the time.
Mate, we'll have to tee that up. Video shout out from Tom Brady. He would be good. Okay, next one. Hardest player to tackle.
Hardest player to tackle. I'd actually go pretty old school in the fact of Lelia Masanga. Back in the day, I felt him. He was tough. I don't just think you'd got it. You'd had him, and then you'd slip out of it. And I marked him a few times, especially early on. And then I think from Super Rugby, he might have gone overseas and played. But I would say him.
True. And there's a story when Banksy obviously left you one-on-one with Nani. He just let him run through.
Oh, yeah.
What do you remember about that?
That was poor from him. He didn't even make out like he was going to attempt to tackle him. At least put his head in a dark space and give it a go, but he just sort of stayed on his inside and didn't even look like he wanted to tackle him. And then, I sort of had to put my head in the spokes and just got piss bowled and did a few rolls backwards and, a bit of a headache after that, that's for sure.
Oh, classic Banksy.
It wouldn't be the first time that he's done that.
Oh, okay.
I saw him make a dominant tackle the other day.
Yeah,
first time, actually.
against the Brumbies. Unbelievable.
I said to him, about time he found his shoulders. It's been a while.
Shane Christie must be into him.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. How does Ben Smith handle pressure?
I suppose enjoying wanting to be in big moments. That sort of when I realised that was a mindset thing, that you want to be in those key moments of important games that mean something, and actually embracing that was probably how I sort of learnt to handle pressure. And it was sort of mainly mental, a mindset shift, and the fact that you want to be in those moments. That helped me over the years.
Mate, like that. Okay, next one. Who is your starting All Black fullback 2023 Rugby World Cup?
Oh, jeez, yeah. That's a tough one. Geordie Barrett's obviously got to be in the team somewhere, but I just think the way that Will Jordan's playing, the way that he counter-attacks and manages to find the try line, I think, with Geordie playing a wee bit of 12 now, I'd just about pick Will Jordan at fullback.
And Geordie at 12. Not the worst.
Geordie at 12, that would be that's where I'd go to with it. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, last question. Best piece of advice Ben Smith has for a Waterlad listener?
I think over my years of playing rugby, it's now, especially looking back, it's actually enjoying enjoying the ride of playing the game, enjoy little milestones that you get along the way, and enjoy just day-to-day things, because before you know it, you're like me, and look, if I am retired, just looking back at all the moments I've enjoyed in the game, and there's obviously been games that you've enjoyed, but then there's also just stuff that happens off the field.
Yeah.
When I catch up with the guys that I played with, that's sort of what we yarn about most, probably, is things that have happened through the weeks of preparing for games and things like that. So that's what I would say to the listeners. Yeah,
mate, I love that. It's so true. It's about enjoying that journey, not so much where you're going to end up, but that whole journey that you go on. Like even from schoolboy rugby to, like you said, club rugby, Otago. You've been through it all, but that whole journey of where you get to is such a cool ride. Eh?
Yeah, I agree, 100%. You got to enjoy that. That's what it's all about.
And you certainly did, by the sounds of it. Lots of benders, lots of good times.
Not so many lately, 3 kids. Thanks for stuff.
I hear you. But, mate, really appreciate you coming on the podcast, giving up your time. You're a legend of the game here in New Zealand and all over the world, to be fair. So it's been cool to go through your journey and have a yarn.
Cheers, Tommy. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, enjoyed it.
You're a lad.